You talked a lot about the fact that we should feel satisfied after we poop. What is it we're looking for when we look down into the toilet? Assuming we do, we should. But what is it we're looking for in an ideal poop? Shape-wise, size, and then we can go from there.
Yeah. There was a famous British scientist who studied poop in Africa, believe it or not. And he came back and he had a sense of humor, like many Irish people do. And he said, when you have big poops, you need small hospitals. And when you have small poops, you need big hospitals. And so in a perfect world, we want big poops. Those are healthy ones. And the way that they would appear is, and again, my wife always tells me, you need to not talk about poop so much in public. But since we're on a health related podcast, I have the freedom to do this right now. A good healthy bowel movement is like a sausage. So it is soft, it is formed, it has that sausage like shape. Because we are pooping with good pelvic floor relaxation and it is effortlessly leaving our body, then it's long as a result of that. It's not broken up into little chicken nuggets. This nice one long sausage or snake, whatever you want to call it. I'm kind of scared of snakes, so like I avoid that one. But that's what we want, and that's what we call a Bristol 4. All right, so the Bristol stool scale, actually, there's a historical reason for this. It goes back to the 1990s, and they were in Bristol in the UK, and they studied about 2,000 people. And they came up with this sort of concept of there's 7 types of bowel movements. So the sausage one is our normal healthy bowel movement. That's number 4. And as we move 3, 2, 1, we are moving into a constipation space. So 3 is hard and lumpy bumpy. And 2 is actually turning into like hard, lumpy bumpy, almost like nuggets. And number 1 is rabbit pellets, like hard balls. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3. And then we can go to the other side. 5, 6, and 7 are diarrhea. 5 is like a cow patty. So just losing its shape. 6 is rather loose. And 7 is straight water. So 3 and 4 are our normal healthy bowel movements. 1 and 2 constipation, 5, 6, and 7 diarrhea. That's what we should be looking at.
All right, so we want to hit that 3 and 4 at least the majority of the time. How often should we be pooping?
All right, so I want to start by saying this, that there are tons of people who poop every single day and they are constipated. So the frequency is not the principal determinant of these things. This is why we need this whole picture of what a healthy bowel movement is, as you're asking me about this. The average bowel movement frequency for people right now is 1 poop a day. That doesn't mean that you're unhealthy if you go every other day. We should be pooping at least twice per week. There are people, though, who will poop more frequently, and it's not a complete bowel movement. So they go, and it just doesn't feel right when it's coming out. Again, not complete, not effortless. And then they feel like they have to go again. They come back 45 minutes later, and it's another little nugget. Those small poops don't count. That's not a full poop. Those are partials. And those often are people who are suffering with bloating and gas. They're constipated. And what they need is they need more complete regular bowel movements, because if they had that, if they were to really start to mobilize their bowels, their symptoms would go away.
How do you feel about using a stool to put the feet up on when pooping? There's a brand out there called Squatty Potty. I think they got everything started and now people use all sorts of things. Is that a good practice?
It's a phenomenal practice, and it makes complete sense just anatomically. It's like a very simple idea here. which is that if you were out in nature camping and you had to go number two, I don't think that you would actually like prop yourself down on a log and try to figure out how to sit the way that you sit on a toilet, right? What you would do is you would just squat down, deep squat, and you would poop. And anatomically, we're actually set up to do that. So there are muscles that exist within the bowl of our pelvis, our pelvic floor, that are designed to actually make it difficult for us to poop unless we're in a squat. And when we are in a squat, then actually it creates a straight rectum, which allows us to then have that clean, effortless, and complete bowel movement. So squatting is the preferred position for pooping. And the person, John J. Crapper or whatever his name was, who invented the toilet, he did not know this. And so they invented a toilet that was more like a throne or a chair. And we sit there with a 90-degree knee and a 90-degree hips, like the way in which our legs connect to our back. It's like 90 degrees. And that's not the way it should be. The angles should be more acute. And it doesn't have to be necessarily the brand Squatty Potty. If you like their brand, I'm all for it. But it's more so just getting your feet elevated. When you elevate your feet, you get your hips up. And when you get you get your knees up, and you get your knees actually above your hips. So, and when the knees go above the hips, that's when you know that you're in a better pooping position. So it could be anything. It could be anything. We have a little in our bathroom at home. I have little kids. So I have 2 kids who are under 2. I have 2 older kids as well. I have 4 total children. So, but with the 2 little ones, we need a little stepping stool for them to be able to get up to the sink and wash their hands and things like this. So the stepping stool makes for a nice squatty potty.
Any hacks if you're in public and you have to poop?
Like when I'm traveling, if I'm in like O'Hare in a major airport and I have to go, I'll put my bag down and I'll use that for my feet. So that would be one of the things that you could do. I mean, just finding something basically that you can put your feet on.
All right. So hydration, diet aside, I want to get into those later. Any other hacks when we're in the bathroom, specifically position, things in that realm that can improve our pooping?
Taking a nice breath in and then letting it out through our lips slowly. And you might even make like a humming noise. And that helps to actually relax our pelvic floor in that moment. So that's one of the things that we can definitely do.
I'm just picturing somebody walking in while the legs are totally up and humming, and the scene that would make.
This happened the other day with our nanny. I told our nanny, I was like, "You're officially a part of the family now that you walked into the bathroom on me." So just our breathing patterns and nice deep breaths in through the nose and then releasing through the mouth. Don't have to do the humming noise if you don't want to, but that's one of the ways that you can help to relax the pelvic floor. A few other things. So hemorrhoids get worse if we spend too much time on the toilet. So don't make it a habit, or try to avoid the habit. This is actually, by the way, mostly a message for men, because men are the ones who do this the most. Try not to make it a habit of sitting on the toilet for 20 minutes and like reading your phone or whatever it is that you're doing. 5 minutes. All right. You feel the urge, you go, you release your bowel movement, and then you get up and you move on with your day. The other hack that's kind of interesting, if you are a person who's irregular in your bowel movements, one of the things is that our entire body thrives on consistency. Our entire body has a circadian rhythm. This is the reason why the most common time of day for people to poop is in the morning, very consistently. But some people are not like that. And that may be because their circadian rhythm is not actually optimized and not in balance. Now, there are many things that you can do to optimize your circadian rhythm, which, by the way, and we could talk about this more, are good for the gut. And this includes, for example, early morning light exposure, right, to help to start the day. But when it comes to creating a regular pooping schedule, believe it or not, you can do this yourself. The way that you do it is by simply establishing a time, many times after coffee, perhaps after breakfast, if you're a breakfast eater. After that, you go and you sit on the toilet for 5 minutes. Even if you don't feel like you have to go, you just do that 5 minutes. Don't force anything, don't strain. If 5 minutes pass and you haven't pooped, get up and leave. But I promise you that if you do this for 3 or 4 days in a row, your body will pick up on what you're trying to do and you will start to have bowel movements at that time. And then you can get yourself into a rhythm of having a good, regular, healthy morning bowel movement, which, by the way, to me is just as good as a great cup of coffee.
You mentioned the fact that we could do this after coffee or breakfast. What is it about those two specific inputs that seem to facilitate pooping?
Okay, so this is going to perhaps move us into a broader conversation. I'll be curious to see where you take this. But I think actually the serotonin is the key. So serotonin, most of us think of serotonin as the happy hormone. So when a person uses drugs to treat depression, those are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They boost serotonin levels in the brain, and that helps to address depression. It turns out that 90 to 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut. And the reason why is because it's a motility agent. Serotonin helps to stimulate gut motility. And when we wake up in the morning, particularly with light exposure, actually that helps our gut to produce serotonin. And then that serotonin turns on, activates the gut, things start to move. And this is part of the reason why you can enhance that even more with morning coffee or with fiber. You can boost those things even more, resulting in that morning bowel movement.
One final question for you that I feel like we need to go back and address in regards to poop, and I don't mean to end on this, but I feel like for completeness there, we talked about shapes of poop, using the poop stool. We got into a lot of detail, but we didn't talk about color. And the reason I feel like it's important we come back to this is because of specifically red in the poop being blood. And obviously that is going to be alarming for people. And it doesn't necessarily mean one specific thing. But let's specifically hone in on that and then talk about the spectrum and why poop generally is a brown color.
Okay. Well, these are bread and butter gastroenterology questions that you're asking me right now. And so, first of all, the poop is brown because of bile. Bile is a digestive juice that we get from our liver. It comes down from our liver through our bile ducts. If you have a gallbladder, it accumulates in your gallbladder. And then when you eat a meal, the gallbladder squeezes and squirts out that bile and it mixes with your food and it helps you to absorb fat. This is the reason why people have gallbladder problems. They get that colicky pain after a meal. That's their gallbladder squeezing. Um, so that's the reason why poop is brown. Now, colors, there's many colors that we could talk about. Let me focus on the blood. Here's what people need to know. Blood, number one, is a cathartic. What that means is that it makes you poop. In small amounts, that may make no difference at all. If you got a little trickle, drop, that's it, then it may not make you poop. But if there's enough of it, that will either show up in your stool being red or on the spectrum of black. All right. So, blood that exists within the intestines for a long time, if it's in there for hours, it will turn black. And the poop also has a really horrible smell that like you will not miss unless you are completely congested. It's a horrible smell and it's quite sticky like tar. All right. And we call that melena, MELENA. And that is many times indicative of an upper GI bleed, so like a stomach ulcer. On the flip side, if it comes out bright red blood means it has spent very little time inside your intestines. Most of the time, that's coming from the rectum. That could mean hemorrhoids, could mean anal fissure. An anal fissure is like someone creating a tear or a paper cut within the anal sphincter. So hemorrhoids, anal fissure, or there could be something going on inside the bottom. All right. Now, what people need to know is if you think that you see blood, I would encourage you to talk to your medical doctor about it and don't wait. Because it can be, although it may be completely benign, it can also be a warning sign of something more serious that's going on, and you are way better finding out what's going on. Um, be aware that there are other things that can give us red poop. And the classic is beets. So beets will definitely give us red poops. If you were to drink a lot of red Gatorade or red food dye, also would give you red poops. Black poops we can get from iron pills, from Pepto-Bismol. So the bismuth actually turns our stool black. Or if you eat a whole bunch of blueberries, cups and cups of blueberries. Like you go to a blueberry farm, you might have a black poop a day or two later. So that's the red to black spectrum. Again, if you see something, I would encourage you to talk to your doctor. A few other colors real quick. If a person has a bile duct blockage, like a gallstone, for example, they might experience clay or gray colored poops. And that means that their bile duct is blocked. All right. And that's because the bile is not able to get from the liver into the intestine. So that's the natural color of your poop without bile is like a clay color. Green you can get if you do like a major green smoothie, or if you have an infection. And then blue we kind of talked about with the melano, the black stuff. But like if you did a lot of blueberries, that could also give you a blue poop.
And then to intentionally end on a lighter note after the red poop talk, there is a study, given the fact that what we consume, we can affect the color of the poop, that I've heard you talk about, the blue muffin study. Talk about what happened there and how that could be used as a test to see how healthy things are in the gut.
Yeah. So this is a quite simple and interesting concept that we're thinking about what's called our gut transit time. And that is the time that if I had a stopwatch, it starts when the food enters my mouth and I swallow it, and it ends when I see it in the toilet bowl. And now, like some people would say, oh, well, I'll do beets or I'll eat some corn. Okay. And you could definitely do that. But the important thing for this was that in this study, we used a specific thing, which was blue food dye. I'm not advocating for people to eat tons of blue food dye. It's like a one-time meal, and you have 2 muffins that have this blue food dye. And by consuming that, you can hit the stopwatch, see how long it takes, and it will show up in the toilet bowl. You will have a blue poop. And that time in between tells you what your gut transit time is. And so what's interesting about this is that different gut transit times have different meanings for the microbiome. So you can actually tell things about a person's gut and their gut health based upon that time. Faster is better. Now, when we get too fast, it's problematic. Like if you're having diarrhea and it's less than 18 hours, then that's not good. But normal is somewhere in the range of 18 hours to 2 days. All right. So, I mean, most people that poop will show up in 1 or 2 days. And then it's the people beyond 2 days that it is taking too long. And that's consistent with constipation. And so the point from my perspective is that it comes back to you asked me, how do we test? How do we measure? And yes, there are tests, like I advocate for the Zoe test. There are tests that exist where we can look at a person's microbiome, we can actually test it, we can look at it. For people who want to do that, they're there. But I'm also here to tell you that there are these things that exist that are free. How do you feel? What's your complete health history? What does your poo look like? And then Jesse, thank you for adding this for us. Number 4 is the blue poo, which is again an experiment that anyone can do at home. So you just quite simply look at, you eat the blue muffins or you make something with this blue food dye, and then you see how long it takes for it to show up in your poop.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
I'm just going to say, this has been a game changer for me. I always get my morning sunlight by 9 o'clock. Through that light exposure, you are producing serotonin in the gut, which helps to stimulate your gut motility, which is a healthy gut, is going to ultimately shape your gut microbiome.